Let's just jump right in with a question that sounds like it's from science fiction, but it's not. Can the trauma your ancestors went through actually be living inside your body today? Not as a story, not as a memory, but as a real, biological instruction?
You know, for so long, we pictured our DNA as this locked blueprint, a fixed script we get from our parents, and that's that. But what science is now showing us is something way more interesting. It's more like our ancestors' lives, their struggles, their famines, their fears. They didn't just disappear. It seems they left notes in the margins of our genetic code.
So welcome to what I like to call biology's ghost story. This is where we get into how a life experience, something that happened decades ago, maybe to someone you never even met, can literally echo through time and travel across generations, written into our very cells. And this isn't some spooky tale. It's a very real science called epigenetic inheritance.
Okay, so how is that even possible, right? How does a memory or an experience become a molecule that gets passed down? Well, let's break it down with a really simple, but I think powerful metaphor: the script and the highlighter.
Okay, so imagine your DNA is this gigantic, super detailed script for a play. Now, epigenetics, it doesn't change any of the words in that script. Your DNA sequence is your DNA sequence. Instead, think of epigenetics as the play's director. The director comes in with a highlighter and a pencil, and they decide which lines get emphasized, turning genes on, and which ones get kind of crossed out, turning those genes off.
So here's how it works in your body. It all starts with a major life event, let's say extreme stress or starvation. Your body responds by sending out a flood of chemical signals. These signals leave tiny physical marks on your DNA. Now, here's the truly revolutionary part. For these marks to get passed on, they have to survive this incredibly complex process of making sperm and eggs. And what's just astonishing to scientists is that some of them do. They make the journey and are passed down to the next generation.
So let's be super clear about this because it's the most important point. We are not talking about changing your actual genes. Your genes are written in permanent ink. These epigenetic instructions, though, think of them like pencil marks. They're just annotations in the margins that can be added, erased, and even updated.
Now, of course, this would all just be a really fascinating theory if there wasn't some powerful evidence to back it up. So let's look at some of the landmark cases, the real-world proof, that showed this was a reality and completely flipped our understanding of inheritance on its head.
So first up, researchers were studying the children of Holocaust survivors, and they found something absolutely astonishing. Even though these kids were raised in totally safe environments, they'd never experienced that trauma firsthand, their bodies showed altered stress hormone profiles, just like their parents. The trauma signature wasn't a story they heard at the dinner table, it was physically written into their biology.
And this transmission can happen incredibly directly. For instance, there were studies on women who were pregnant and near the World Trade Center during the 9/11 attacks. They found their infants were born with similarly messed up stress hormone levels. The mother's traumatic experience was passed on, right there in the womb.
And get this, it isn't just about emotional trauma. Back in the Dutch hunger winter of 1944, children who were conceived during that terrible famine showed lifelong health problems. It was as if their bodies got a message before they were even born that said, hey, the world is starving. You need to prepare for scarcity. So their metabolism was set differently for a world of scarcity that thankfully no longer existed for them.
And of course, this has all been confirmed in controlled lab settings, which really helps us isolate what's going on biologically. In one famous experiment, scientists conditioned mice to be afraid of a specific smell, like cherry blossoms. And what they found was that their children and even their grandchildren would show fear and anxiety around that exact same smell without ever having been exposed to it themselves. A specific fear, inherited.
Okay, so it's just fascinating science. But what does it actually mean for you, for me, for our health? Well, this discovery basically gives us an entirely new map for understanding ourselves and for modern medicine. I mean, this creates a massive shift in how we have to approach health. The old questions a doctor might ask focused on what's happening to you right now. But the new questions, wow, they're so much deeper. It's no longer just what are your symptoms, it's now what history lives inside your body. It's not just is it genetic, it's what is your inherited stress load.
And this just opens up this incredible future for medicine. You can actually imagine a day where a simple blood test could give you an epigenetic profile, showing you what inherited stress signatures you're carrying. This could lead to really targeted interventions designed to reset those harmful marks. Even something like prenatal care could be transformed, screening for trauma, because we now understand that a mother's environment directly impacts her child's long-term biology.
Now I know, hearing all of this might feel a little heavy, right? Like we're just puppets of the past, destined to repeat these patterns. But this right here is the most important part of the story.
The past is not your prison. We have the power to rewrite our own biological scars.
And that leads us to the most personal, and I think the most important question of all, the one this entire explainer has been building up to. Are we just defined by our ancestors' pain?
And the answer, thankfully and so powerfully, is no. Because remember those pencil marks we talked about? The single most hopeful discovery in this entire field is that these epigenetic marks are reversible.
See, we are not just passive carriers of this legacy. We are active participants. The same biological system that's sensitive enough to record trauma is also sensitive enough to record healing. Think about it. Therapy can literally reshape your stress responses at a chemical level. Creating safe, stable environments lowers the chronic stress hormones that make these marks in the first place. Good nutrition, exercise, they're not just nice to have. They provide the actual building blocks for a healthier epigenome. And strong social connections? Turns out that's one of the most powerful buffers against stress we have. These aren't just good ideas. They are biological interventions that can help rewrite those notes in the margins of our DNA.
So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with this last thought. Our biology isn't some sealed box we can't open. We inherit stories and sometimes wounds that we were never even told about. And sometimes, the body screams with the voice of someone who lived decades before us. But here's the thing. If trauma can be inherited, then so can resilience. And that gives us the incredible power not only to heal ourselves, but to fundamentally change the legacy we pass on.